But to me, I think O-Lineman, man, it's just one of those positions. You got a lot of meathead guys that just love to take shots and that's kind of thing. So I think it determined. I think, probably if you go like inside to out, the dirtiest groups probably those centers and guards. I mean, they love to just take some nasty shots.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Not Just Football with Cam Heyward. I, of course, am your host, number 97, Cam Heyward. As always, my buddy and longtime friend and co-host, Hayden Walsh is here. We have a special guest today. He played for the Bengals. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams, which is more important. Andrew Whitworth, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Cam. Good to see you, man.
Appreciate you coming on.
Oh, of course, man. Hey, look, man, a legend like you, I was excited when I heard the opportunity. So I'm happy to sit on here and rap with you for a little bit.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because, for all those years, we were always enemies on the field. And then you went to the Rams and won a Super Bowl. So you finally made the right decision, right?
That's right. You were okay with that. And I beat the Bengals to do it. So I'm sure that made it even better for you as well if you had to support it. So, yeah, man, dude, a lot of legendary battles and great teams back, in that AFC North. And, man, I'll remember a lot of those games for forever, man. There's a lot of special battles, that's for sure. And y'all were an amazing team defensively for sure. And some of the best battles I had, with you and James and the guys over the years, man, I'll never forget them.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What was it like going against Lamar and James Harrison all those times?
I mean, James was just always so funny because, it's a lot of the talk of Debo and just who he was and all that. But, like, the style he played with, he never spoke to me, though. So it's like we'd battle and, like, you'd never talk and we would just get over the game. And then after the game, he'd be like the kindest dude ever. Like, hey, what's up, big dog? Like, give me a hug. But during the
Right.
game, like, it was just like ferocious, and he's just smashing you every play, relentless, all of that, man. And then he came to Cincinnati, obviously for 1 year. It was really cool to be around him that year. But man, some legendary games of just, I always say when I go back and think of like the guys I got to play in my career, like you play some special guys that you could say, hey man, in certain situations they're good players, like whether it be against the, rushing the passer or playing the run. But I always put James and Terrell Suggs, in my opinion, in a pretty rare category in the sense that they played every down of NFL football the same way. They were dominant in the run game. They dominated in the pass game. Just very few guys like that dominate every facet of football, really, and were really good at all the above.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because, I got to thinking about one of the times we played you, and it's not even about James. It's about Troy Polamalu. And, I don't know what happened. There was something dirty that happened that just set Troy off at the end of the game, and we were already losing. And, to get Troy upset was kind of crazy. And then I remember, I think Doma Pecco went in the game and said something to Troy and was like, Troy, that's not like you. And you just saw Troy go back to being the stoic Troy. But
Yep.
you bring up those battles between the Bengals and the Steelers, they are some unique games if you really watch them.
Oh, they are. I mean, the physicality in those games was so rare. I mean, I
Mm.
used to tell people there was multiple years that we both knocked each other out of contention going in the playoffs just from the physicality of, like, we'd play the last game of the year on Sunday Night Football or something and end up like, hey man, nobody's got any starters for the next Sunday to be able to play in the playoffs. It was unbelievable. But those games were fun to watch, and there were
Yeah.
amazing battles. I mean, to think of even earlier in my career, some of the games that, we had a chance to play for the division to end the season multiple times. I mean, getting knocked out of the playoffs my rookie year with Santonio Holmes catching a bomb in overtime in like '06. It's just all kinds of legendary wins and losses that, regardless of what side you ended up on, you're like, man, what a football game, physicality, the passion, the energy. It was always one of the best going when it was Steelers Bengals.
So we're gonna get to your Rams time, but I first want to sum up your Bengals career and
Um,
how it affected you.
I think for me, really, it's about I learned a lot of things. I mean, for me, I came up in high school. I was a part of an amazing program. I was 58-2 in high school, won
Mm.
like 3 state championships, played like top teams in Texas and Mississippi and everywhere else. I lived in Louisiana. And then going to college, I was part of being the winningest group in LSU's history at that time. Now it's been beaten since the program blew up, but won a national championship with Nick Saban, had a lot of success. And then to come to somewhere in Cincinnati where I think they'd had one winning season in like 20 something years when I got there. It was something I had never been around, and regardless of who you are and what you think, when you lose a lot, it sets in and it changes people, and it's hard to not get kind of gruff and a little just angry at the world a little bit when you're putting in that kind of time and effort and you're not winning. And so being in those locker rooms, it was tough to overcome like this mentality that was kind of there, regardless of how good players were. They had a little bit of what I would call like a losing mentality or a protect yourself mentality. Like, I'm going to play good, but I get it, we'll probably lose. And so over the time I was there, to really come from that to start to, we had a rough start the first couple of years I was there, and then to, go to the playoffs 6 times, to win a few division championships. We never found that playoff win, but we had a lot of success, and we really changed what that franchise was for the last 20 years into a team that was competitive, and we won a lot of NFL football games. I think people forget Andy Dalton in his, first 5 years in Cincinnati. I mean, they won almost 60, I think it was 59, 58 games out of those 5 years. I mean, they won a lot of football games. So I think to me, it's one of those things where I'm always like, man, I wish we'd have had that playoff win to kind of submit, our run to go to the Super Bowl and get a chance. But I'm really proud of what we did, taking that franchise from where it was to becoming a perennial competitor and somebody that every year, every team, regardless of what they thought from the narrative abroad, that team was really good. And we had a chance to win a lot of football games and have some success. So I think that to me, it was more about the battle and the journey of trying to find a way to become a winner. That's how I kind of sum that time up.
I love that you bring that up because, like, there's a narrative out there that if you don't win the Super Bowl, you're not a good team. And there are so many good players and good teams. Andy Dalton, you had AJ Green, Geno Atkins on the other side. Like, Pac-Man Jones, Clinton Bowling, who I love going against, just because we had to play against each other in middle school to high school. I always enjoyed that time playing against y'all because you guys were a good team. And I always thought that Marvin Lewis did a really good job coaching. And I think sometimes, you lose a game and it defines the entire team. But, man, there are some good teams out there that don't always get the respect that they should.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, you really look at it. I mean, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of teams that you can say that about. But I look at Marvin Lewis to think of what he took over when he became the head coach there with no scouting department, with some of the limitations that franchise had, to becoming a coach who won multiple, like 3 or 4 division championships, went to the playoffs 6, 7 times in his career. It's like everyone wants to label him for what he didn't do. And it's like, oh, you didn't find a way to win a playoff game. But anybody that's been in the NFL long enough or been around it knows that in playoffs, one, you got to catch some breaks and the ball's got to go your way. But mainly, you got to be healthy. If you don't have a healthy football team, you look every year, the teams that are winning the Super Bowl or they're making the long runs are either getting healthy and getting some guys back because they've been unhealthy, or they are one of the most healthy teams in the league that year who actually have kept some of their stars. And that's just a fact. I mean, it is what it is in the playoffs. You need your guys to win the game. And so I think for him to be labeled as like, oh man, he was just perennial loser because he didn't win a playoff game, it's crazy to me because of what he took over and what he was able to accomplish. And it's also been unfortunate to me that he's never gotten another shot because of it, because what he overcame there, when you look at some of these coaches that have gotten these second chances, it's hard to imagine anybody deserve one more than him.
Yeah. I don't understand how he doesn't have a second job. And, he's done so much right that you would think he'd get another whack at it. I like how you put a bow on Cincinnati. Take us through that process of, moving over to, LA and going to the Rams.
Well, I didn't mind trading in all my winter jackets. I'll tell you that much. All right. No, but, it was a lot of fun. I mean, to me, it was one of those times where it was tough on me and the family to change something we'd always known and what we were invested in. I mean, that city, like I used to always say, like, when I chose to leave Cincinnati, it's like some people, coin it as like, oh man, it's free agency. You go choose like where you can get the most money or where you can do whatever. Like at that point in my career, it wasn't even about that. I mean, in the city of Cincinnati, I'd been there so long and been a part of that community, invested our family into that community that, I mean, I basically chose to leave comfort. Like, I mean, there's nothing I could do. Like, I could not practice if I wanted to because I've been there forever. Like, I could go anywhere I wanted to eat, do anything I wanted to do. Like, I was choosing to leave my comfort place.
Mm.
And so for us and the family, it was a tough decision. It really was. And unfortunately, we just felt like Cincinnati had kind of made their choice the year before when they drafted the young kids they drafted. And I kind of asked for an extension, and they said, no, let's play it out. We want to see if we like these young kids. And so a year later, when it's time to sit down, it's like, all right, I'm here. I'm a free agent. Like, I'm gonna at least listen to people because you guys chose not to listen to me a year ago. So,
Mm.
and then that came about, and it was like, man, it wasn't even close. I mean, Cincinnati kind of was offering me to basically stick around for a year type of contract, if you want to end your career here. And everyone else was like, it's like pursuit, right? Everyone else is like begging me to come there, and what could we possibly put on the table to get you to leave? And so I thought, like, for us, it was like, man, it's the difference of kind of feeling taken for granted
Mm.
and people being like, man, you would mean everything to us if you show up in our door. And so I was blown away at how many offers and teams wanted me. And at the end of the day, it kind of came down to a relationship that, Jay Gruden, when he was in Cincinnati, had tried to hire Sean. So I'd met him, and then I'd met him at a couple of events and stuff. And we had some, mutual friends. And so I had a lot of respect for Sean and who he was just as a dude, not, much less about football. And so I thought it'd be super cool to be, older than my head coach, and somebody that's kind of more of a peer and a buddy, to be somebody you're doing something with. And it's become one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And well, it really is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And, my wife and I couldn't be more happy with it. And it's been an awesome ride. That's for sure.
Who were the other teams, Andrew, that you might have gone to?
Yeah, so I originally, when I started free agency, wanted to go to New York. So
Mm.
at that time, Eli Manning was there still. They had struggled a little bit with Eric Flowers was a young player, had not played very well at left tackle so far, and they didn't know really if he'd be the answer. And so I had talked to Eli, knew him well, and I just knew what a competitor their team was every year. And so I was like, man, great running game, play action. That's just my style. So I'd love to go play there. And they kind of decided that they thought they'd give Eric another couple years to see if he could shake out. The Jets made me an offer. Carolina was in there, and they ended up going with Khalil. San Diego at that time, they were still there. We had talked to them a bunch, but Minnesota was probably the most aggressive
Mm.
because of Zimmer and I's relationship. They were really aggressive. And then Denver was somewhere I live. A lot of people don't realize I live in the off seasons. I would live in Colorado. I had a home there. I like to train in the altitude. So I'd spend my summers like 6, 7 weeks in the altitude training, and I loved being up in the mountains. So I was very interested in that one. I still give, anybody I ever meet that knows Elway, I still give them crap because they pulled their offer like right when we were trying to kind of in the middle of trying to figure it out. So that one hurt me though. I would have loved to live there, but LA was kind of always in my mind. And weirdly enough, life shakes out in different ways. My wife and I actually decided, instead of getting married in Louisiana, because she was a former Miss Louisiana, like a news anchor, all these things there. I was, an athlete there, obviously in college and high school. We just didn't want to live, get married there because we kind of felt like we wanted to go away and have a small family wedding. So we actually got married in LA.
Mm.
We just randomly picked like a resort, like, hey, let's go out to LA. It's beautiful weather. Let's pick a place out there, take our, closest family member and friends, and go get married. So randomly enough, we'd gotten married there. So we were kind of like, man, what a cool, like, out of nowhere. Never thought we'd live and play here. And so we ended up, obviously to us, it was like, man, that'd be kind of cool. It's a place we got married, and the kids could, they obviously weren't around then. So it'd be cool for them to have that story that's where we ended up. So all those things kind of played into it. And it ended up being that was kind of where we felt home.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you just wound up on the Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's a wild years. That's for sure. I mean, to think, I can remember literally, Cam, like, and all the motions you go through as a player, and whether it's through contracts or guys coming and going on your team. I can remember I had a cool moment actually this preseason. I went back to call the Bengals Rams preseason game. They played like week 2, I think, in the preseason.
Mm.
And I have not been back to Cincinnati since I left in free agency. So one way or another, just we sold our house right after we left. and just never made it over that way. And obviously it was like kind of a fresh wound for a little while. And then it just kind of played out with our kids and everything else. We never made it back. So I go back for the preseason game, and I go to dinner the night before with Sean and Matthew Stafford and some of the guys, Raheem Morris. I think Kirk Herbstreit was in town and joined us. It's kind of a group of us went to go eat. And I got to share with the guys at the restaurant. We went to the precinct, Jeff Ruby's spot. And that was the last time I was in Cincinnati, is the night before I signed my contract with the Rams and flew out to LA. I took my family to the precinct, and we sat in a private room and kind of waited on calls to come in and make a decision. And so I shared with them, I said, look, dude, you never know what happens. 5 years ago, I sat in this room and I never knew where my life would go. And then here I am back here 5.5 years later, and I've won a Super Bowl. I've gotten to have the relationship with all you guys, man. You never know where life goes, man. Got to keep betting on yourself, believing in yourself, keeping your head up, and letting it go, man.
Explain that Super Bowl run to us. What really stood out to you in those moments?
I think it's just a lot of things that are surreal to me now. I mean, it's crazy to think how things all play out, fall into place. But the reality of getting Odell to join us and Von Miller in the middle of that season, I mean, it's crazy. It's just random small world stuff. But like Von Miller and I, when he was a young player, I used to think he was such a good player that when I'd see him in the offseason stuff, man, we'd always talk about how cool it'd be to play together and all those type things. And when we signed him, that was the first thing we text about. Is like, dude, we've talked about this forever. How crazy is this? And then Odell, he had been hitting me up for years, like just, hey, man, I want to come to LA. He obviously lived here in the off seasons, always wanting to be here. And so for him to end up here too, it was just, it really is kind of one of those moments where you don't know what's going to happen. But when they joined us midseason last year, I was like, man, something's kind of falling into place. It's just meant to be. And I don't know what it is, but it's meant to be. And then obviously you get into the playoffs, and, things go kind of how you would thought they would go, like the outlook of what you think is going to happen. Like I kind of thought San Francisco, how they were built, just like us, we've struggled with them. I thought they match up really well with Green Bay. And I was like, man, that's going to be a tough one for Green Bay to win. So when I was watching San Francisco play the Cowboys, I was like, man, if they find a way to beat the Cowboys, Green Bay cannot like this matchup, because this isn't a team that like they're going to match up well with. And so when we end up going out though for the NFC Championship, we're playing the Niners. Bengals Chiefs is right before our game, and like I was like late to warmups because I'm watching like the Bengals Chiefs game. Like I'm like, I gotta watch this kick. Are they really going to the Super Bowl? And then as soon as I saw it go in, I take off running to join the team for warmups. And I just played that game with like, dude, I'm about to play, all out, because there is no way that the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl and I'm not going to be there. Like, there's no way. I don't care what happens in this game. Something's going to shake out where I'm playing the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And sure enough, it happened, man. And what a special couple weeks, that's for sure.
Oh, man. So everybody's seen the clip. When did you know you were going to retire, right after the Super Bowl?
I knew, writing's on the wall again. And so to me, I always said, when I was in Cincinnati, I had the deal happen where they draft Cedric Ogbuehi and Jake Fisher, first round, second round, back-to-back tackles. That's for you. Like, you know what the, the story's going to be. And so I kind of always said, look, I'm going to keep playing. And since I'd gotten to LA, it really had been like, hey, man, you're the guy here. You're the captain. You're this and that. And it always been that way. They treated me amazing and always have. But I always was like, listen, one thing I'm not going to do is like, I'm not going to go back to that kind of world where once it's like, hey, you're going to play for less. We want you to stay a little longer, blah, blah, blah. Like, I've played enough. I've done enough. Like, it's time to make it about the family and having a good time and us doing something where they don't have to worry about me on the football field. And so I'd kind of said I'll never give in again on one of those situations. And so it really, when we got to the end, throughout this year, Joseph Noteboom was a guy who'd been playing, when I'd missed a game, or Rob Havenstein had missed a game during the seasons and done a really good job. And he was going to be a free agent. And I knew it was going to be a really tough decision for the team and for everyone on what to do. And so I kind of made a decision in the last couple games of the season. I was like, look, I don't want to get into a situation like that again. I've already kind of reduced my salary for this season to come back and play, and I won't do it again. And so I kind of told Melissa, and I sat down and we decided, look, this is it. We've made the playoffs. We're going to go after this playoff run. And that's all she wrote. Like it's enough. And so, not that I felt like I needed to walk away or even that I couldn't play again. Just kind of felt like enough's enough, and let's make the decision to go on. And so, to get to have a chance to win that Super Bowl and then sit the kids down on the turf and kind of let them know that's actually what's going to happen. We'd obviously discussed it as a family, just hadn't come to a final decision with them. I think that was a really, really special moment that hopefully they'll get to see, since all the one good part of the media and the content and everything we have these days is they'll always have that video. So it'll be neat for them to be able to see it when they're older and maybe they understand it a little more.
Man, it was an unbelievable moment. You being able to explain to them after the game, just being able to be that intimate in such a crazy setting. I was actually at the Super Bowl and I saw you before, and I'll say this: you are very humble, because that's not the only thing you won. You won the Walter Payton Man of the Year, and you gave a hell of a speech, dude. Like, for anyone who needed to hear that in that auditorium and on TV, man, you touched a lot of people's souls. And if you could just explain a little bit of I don't know if you have it off the cuff, but a little bit of your speech.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
that thing really hit home.
Yeah, I think, for me, I've had the opportunity to speak a lot and do things, but, obviously that situation's totally different. But I've always taken the approach of, just go with what's on your heart and on your mind, and the right people who are meant to be listening and are ready to listen will hear it, and the rest of them you can't control anyways. And so sometimes we get too anxious about saying the perfect thing, and really, as long as it's you and it's from the heart, that's all that really matters. And so, that was part of the surrealness of the year. I mean, with joining, not just Von Miller joining us and Odell joining us and some of the things that all kind of played into the specialty of playing the Bengals in the Super Bowl. But one of the actual crazy moments that sums up your career and gave me that feeling of finality to my season and my career was Derek Barnes. And that's why I felt like when I had that opportunity, like, hey, when they tell you, hey, you're one of the top people, you have a chance to win, you need to have a speech ready in case. And so when they said that, I was like, look, I'm just going to get up there and tell my story about Derek Barnes, because to me, that sums up really what life's all about. And it really brings my career in full circle. And the story is that Derek Barnes, when I was a rookie in the NFL and would go and do Boys and Girls Club visits and different things in the community, he was one of the kids that was at the Boys and Girls Club. And so I kind of struck up a friendship with him and some of his buddies. They were, probably 6 to 8 years old. And I'd go and throw the football with them and just spend my Tuesdays with them, because I was a rookie in the league, never been to, the Midwest in my life, born and raised in Louisiana. I was bored and I was lonely myself, and so I saw something in those kids and where they were in their hearts, and just wanting people to hang out with them. And so we spent a lot of time together. And then sure enough, this year 16, last season, he comes up to me after a game, like running after me after a game. And I'm like, man, I do not know who this is. And I'm trying to think of every player I've played with, every coach, everything. Just like, man, I got to remember, is this an LSU kid? And I don't remember him. And he runs up and immediately says, dude, don't try to figure out who I am, because you're not going to remember it. He's like, but I'm Derek Barnes. Me and you used to hang out at the Boys and Girls Club in Cincinnati, Ohio, 16 years ago. And it just floored me. I was like, I remember asking our PR person after the game, what did I say? Were you standing there? What did I say? Because I was so blown away that I don't even remember what I really said to him. I remember hugging him and just telling him, man, thank you for sharing that with me. But I can't remember anything else. But for him to come and just be like, hey, man, look, dude, I just wanted you. I've been these last couple of years hoping you would hang on, because I wanted to be able to show you, I made it to the NFL. I was a little kid joking around about playing in the league at that time, but I actually made it. And man, it was just such an emotional moment. And then to get to visit with him after that moment, and kind of we've kept in touch, man, just special. There's no bigger fan of Derek Barnes than me, that's for sure. I'm happy for him, man. I hope he has a great career. But I wanted people to realize, we just never know the moment that an investment in somebody, a smile, a handshake, a hug, just a moment to encourage somebody, you never know how it's going to affect their life. We never know the outcomes, man. So just live in the moment and make sure you don't miss those opportunities that you can make a difference for somebody.
I love that.
All right, people, we're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook, the greatest sports betting app ever, and honestly, the only one you need. It's not just about the big bonuses and boosts and promos that you get. It's the fact that every time you bet, whether you win or lose, you're earning towards the types of perks only Caesars can offer: free stays, concert tickets, bonuses, and more. That's because when you download the Caesars Sportsbook app, you become a Caesars Rewards member, and that means perks. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-522-4700.
Lions, Tigers, and tailgates. Oh my. The college football season is always a great time of year. Besides the jerseys, the face paint, and foam fingers, there's the food. And nothing gets you more fired up for game day than Eckrich smoked sausage. They are naturally hardwood smoked and have the perfect blend of spices. From buffalo sausage dip to sausage chili mac and cheese, Eckrich smoked sausage is a quick way to bring flavor to your tailgate meals. Visit Eckrich.com for easy, one-of-a-kind sausage recipes. Eckrich, you do you.
Switching gears a little bit, you mentioned moments. Give me your welcome to the NFL moment.
Oh man, I think probably there's a lot of them throughout your career. You probably get one way or another, but I think my own like true personal playing in a game, welcome to the NFL moment. My first NFL start at left tackle. I played in a couple games after Levi Jones got hurt in kind of a sub role in Tampa Bay. I played Simeon Rice and probably played the last 3 quarters of that game after Levi got hurt. But the next week, my first NFL start was against the Carolina Panthers. Mike Rucker and Julius Peppers, who at that time, like they were crushing the league in sacks. Those two guys got after it. They had Chris Jenkins in the middle, who was an absolute monster. He was their 3 tech, and man, he got after it. And that front was special. And so I can remember going to that game, your first NFL start, you're going to play Pep and Mike Rucker, who I think they had like 80 sacks at that time over the last 4 years or something between the two of them. And so I'm literally just like, all right, man, like, you got to be technically great. And so going to the game, it's going great. And like games kind of played out how you'd hope it would as a young rookie left tackle, like a lot of running games going well. You're not getting put in a lot of tough situations, only a few third downs here or there. And we get into the second half and get a lead. And so I start kind of like feeling a little confident. I got a little swag to me, like, all right, man, maybe I belong. And so we run a run play and I catch Mike. I got him good. Like I got in there, got the hooks, like pin him on the ground, kind of just fall all my weight on him. Like, yeah, get up, just kind of talking trash. And so, late fourth quarter, 4-minute drill, I do it, I land on him, whatever. I'm feeling really good. And so I get to the play, and the coach, it was a good run. He's like, hey, run it back, same play. So I found out real quick about, going against veteran D-linemen that can sniff the same formation, same everything. I come off just like, oh, I'm going to smash this dude again. And I mean, he humps me with an arm, and I still don't know how I landed, but I know I was looking up at the sky when it was over with. And he was blowing up the running back in the backfield. And I remember he just turned and looked at me, and he's like, you better calm down, Rook. And I was like, you know what? All right, I'm just going to block my guy from now on, and I'm going to stay out of the trash talking business as a rookie for right now. But that was kind of my like, all right, like, don't get too far ahead of yourself moment.
So the OC set you up, basically.
Yeah, you ran it back, same play, and I felt good about it right up until I didn't. That was the problem. Right up until I didn't, I felt great about it.
Oh, yeah, I can attest to that. Like, if a defense is losing and they keep running the same play, you're bound to take a shot to make sure that this same play is not working again.
100%. Ain't no doubt.
Oh, okay. So, I see that you're on TV now doing your thing. You're an analyst. You're breaking down tape. You're letting people know about the O-line and D-line game. Explain to me how hard it is to judge O-linemen. Because I see all these scouting programs and everything, and they give them these grades. And I'm like, how the hell are they able to, like, differentiate between, and put this guy on a pedestal and then put this guy below? But how do you explain like the O-line game and, all the different, grading tools when it comes to O-line?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, you look at it, sometimes, I think that because there's a lack of understanding of really O-line play, that sometimes these grading systems can kind of get a little bit, as I say, it's like maybe we're focusing on the wrong part of their game or the wrong part of things that we're emphasizing that are giving them good or bad grades. They really don't have as much to do with their job as you probably could. And so looking at it and evaluating, I think, obviously, guys like yourself and myself that have played the game as long as we can, you know what you're looking for to find guys who are quality players. And then I think that sometimes with grading systems, it's hard because they don't put into account like who they're playing, what the situations of the games are, what kind of offense are they playing? Are they even being asked to do things that are difficult, or are they just full sliding and chipping everybody? And like, are they ever actually having to like one-on-one block? I mean, there's so many things that go into, I like to use the word exposure. I think that, in the NFL, we don't talk enough about like real exposure. Like, what kind of system, what kind of plays are this individual getting asked to run? And are they really ever being exposed to say, all right, look, you're really on an island, or you're really blocking these guys by yourself? Because I think that matters. I mean, you play a Nick Bosa as a left tackle, compared to somebody else, like it matters. If you go through that game and shut him down, like there's no way that's an even score with taking on some rookie who doesn't know how to rush. Like, and right now in grading systems, most O-line grading systems, there's no positive to like stopping significant players or anything. It's just a flat grade for pass protection. And so that means if I get 3 people that help me, and I face Nick Bosa by myself, or whoever you want, Myles Garrett or whoever you want, like we get the same grade, like that makes no sense, right? So it's unfortunate to me that it's not as hard as people make it out to be. You could take some guys and get a clear understanding of what you're being asked and have a much better grading system, that's for sure. But also that, if you take, certain grading systems, I don't want to call any of them out too much, but like in run blocking, you actually get positives and negatives. But in pass protection, you don't. So, all right. So then theoretically, if I play on a team that runs it more than they throw it, I already have a better grade. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like that, now you're just saying what team I'm on dictates what my grades will be. Like, it's just stuff that's like completely irrational. Like, I don't even understand the idea. Like, why defend that? It's just not right. So, I think that to me, it's tough. You got to trust your eyes. You got to know what you're looking at. And honestly, it comes down to, there's just a lack of understanding what they're asked. And you know this, but, a lot of guys don't. I think guys that play D-line and O-line, you're in the midst of the game. Like, if anybody has to have a clear understanding of what quarterbacks are doing, what running backs are doing, what the secondary is doing, the receivers, tight ends. I mean, guys in the trenches have to know a lot to understand what their job is and where they should be. We'll go on calls like, and do stuff like me, Rich, Sherm, and Ryan. And like, not one media person asked me a question because they think like O-line I only know like, well, if it's 3rd and 8, like how do you block Nick Bosa or how do you block Myles Garrett? And it's like, all right, like you could ask me questions about defense and offense. I can answer them with anybody. I guarantee you. Like, it's just funny though, but that's their perception. They don't know that we know anything other than how to just grunt and growl and sweat on each other. And that's it. That's all they think we know, right? And so it's fun to be in this world and be able to expose people to what you understand.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because there's one thing I have a pet peeve with. I'll get a minus for seeing a double in a passing game, but then I don't really rush. I'm getting my hands up because it's rhythm passing and it's quick passing. And so in the grand scheme of things, I'm helping my team because I'm getting my hands up, but it's looked at I'm not rushing. Exactly. And so it's funny how like they don't even understand that side of the ball or that nuance of part of the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at even O-line play, like you can get double pluses or whatever, a plus for a run play if you sustain a block. Well, if your running back doesn't get past the line of scrimmage, you don't get a chance. Like, so like you're putting things where guys are getting better grades based off of the success of other people, not themselves. So it's like I don't know how you quantify like somebody's better if me and another team run the same exact play and my running back slips and falls down, but I pancake my guy, and the other team, their running back stays up, breaks a tackle because somebody else got beat and runs for 90 yards. They get 3 pluses. Like, it's like, wait a minute, we did the same block. Like, that's the kind of stuff like just doesn't make any sense to me, So it's got to be, to me, if you're really going to evaluate line play,
I
It's
feel like
got
we
to
could
have
talk
to
about
do
this
with like,
all day.
oh, all day. It's got to evaluate the actual individual player and what his job was and what he did.
I feel like I could talk about this all day with you. Like, but I'll bring up this: who's the dirtiest group, O line or D line?
Oh man, you know what? There's too many meatheads probably in the O line that I've never been. Here's my thing. I always felt like this, Cam. This is always my deal. If we're in a big game and it gets to 4-minute offense, okay, and we're trying to keep the football, I'm finishing everybody. Like that's, hey, look, you should have stopped us from getting you in this situation. I'm trying to, everybody's getting
Right.
some. Like if I can finish you, I'm finishing you, right? But outside of that, like it's about me blocking you and you not making the play, and I'm going to do my job to do that. And there's opportunities to finish guys, whatever, like, but never really outside of the frame of the whistles or trying to, hurt somebody. But to me,
Mm.
I think O-Lineman, man, it's just one of those positions. You got a lot of meathead guys that just love to take shots and that kind of thing. So I think it determined. I think, probably if you go like inside to out, the dirtiest groups probably those centers and guards. I mean, they love to just take some
Oh,
nasty shots. I mean, they're just I think of Ryan Jensen every time I think of this. It's like, man, this dude just every chance he gets, and I laugh because it's like, didn't the guys know going into the game, like, this is what he does? Like, this, he's literally just doing this on
yes,
purpose. But it's just funny to me. Some of those guys,
yes.
that's their style, that's their game.
I've known multiple guys who get upset with Ryan Jensen, and it's like, guys, you got to circle that. That's what he thrives off. He wants
Yep.
you to react. He like that's part of his game. And the
Yep.
best thing you can do is just ignore it and just beat him on the scoreboard, because then I know that gets under Jensen's skin.
Oh, 100%. The other thing I think is funny is you don't see as many teams like defend each other in those situations as you used to. I can remember like early in our years, Pittsburgh, Bengals, Ravens, like all this. It's like, dude, if you touched Ray Lewis after a play, I mean, you were going to get jumped on the
Mhm.
football field instantly if your hands
Yep.
were touching him and a play ended. Like, and in Pittsburgh, no different. If you're touching one of those guys, you're touching Palomalu at the end of a play, like, you are going to get annihilated by everybody that can get to you immediately. And you don't see as much of that now. It's a lot of like kind
Yeah.
of guys don't really do that as
No.
much. And I think it's because of how much we've brought out the fines and tried to change the game a little bit that way. But it is funny. Like I can remember back then, like that wasn't even an option to touch somebody like that. The wrong guy, you'd be in a tough situation quick.
Oh, it's funny you bring that up, because I feel like we were playing the Panthers one year, and Ben was scrambling out of the pocket, which we're not wanting to do with Ben, first of all. So Ben got out of the pocket, and I think it might have been Eric Reed coming down, and he just touched Ben, and you saw Pounce just race over.
Oh yeah.
And Marquise doesn't play when you touch Ben. Like,
Yep.
that is his number one job in protecting Ben. So we knew whatever happens, those are the bodyguards. They're going to protect their
Yep.
guys. And you think you would see that more and more of the protection, but sometimes you look at these guys, you're like, oh, you just going to let that happen?
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
It's the best time of year. Football season is in full swing. Basketball and hockey have returned, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Make up for lost time and go enjoy a game. Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN, is offering you $10 off your first $100 ticket purchase with code NJF. That's code NJF. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Let's talk about offensive lineman play. How tough is it to be an offensive tackle in this game today?
I think it's different. I think certain teams, obviously, there's different levels of exposure that you're going to get depending on what the system is. I mean, I think the toughest part really right now that you're seeing is that the college game has become so different from the pro game that some of the things these O-linemen are asked to do when they get to the NFL are just so different from what they did in college. I mean, sustaining long play actions, some of these shotgun plays where you're dropping 7 steps and you're sitting back there trying to hit deep routes, deep crosses, different things like that. Like it's not, the sustain level is not like that in college. So I think that, the biggest problem right now at the tackle position especially is that a lot of these young college players just haven't played that kind of football. And only certain ones that are maybe in a system that's similar to the NFL, have a little bit of a jump start on other guys. And so I think that's one of the bigger challenges right now, because the era of having like 3, 4, 5 really good left tackles come in a draft, you just hadn't seen it like it's been before. And so I think you've seen more teams actually find them later in the draft, kind of a surprise guy that you didn't even know, because the college tape's just hard to really know who's good and who's not in some of these situations. But I think the biggest challenge right now in the game for tackles is that, the shotgun has become such a prevalent thing. I mean, that's all teams want to do now, is get back there and try and get in the shotgun and run plays. And outside of some of the really good coordinators, in the league, like Andy Reid, some of these guys that move the spot and continuously put you in a situation where you don't get to just straight rush all the time. You play in one of these teams that likes to just sit back there and throw it and gives the defensive lineman an immediate, hey, we know where the quarterback's standing. That gives them a chance to tee off. And I think that's the thing that makes it challenging. And not only that, but the athleticism and just, at the progression of the game, man, it's just these guys, these rushers are unbelievable. I can remember a time when it was like, hey, you could circle the 6 games during the year that, like, I'm going to face, oh man, these 6 weeks, I'm going to face a dog. And now it's like every team has some guy that you're like, wow, okay, this dude, he may not be great against the run, but wow, he's got some special pass rush moves, or, this guy's an unbelievable player in all phases. So it just seems to be that position on the edges is getting better and better over time.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I want to bring out, and I noticed, you look at Lane Johnson, and he started off at quarterback, then went to tight end, and then finished up at tackle. Is this right? You were a tight end going from high school to college?
Yeah, I was a tight end as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
and so yeah, like understanding that, like, do they always want? Is that becoming more prevalent? Seeing the athletic side of tackles, getting them at different positions, and then plugging them in, and almost turning them into tackles.
Yeah, I think you look at the tackle position, you're going to see more and more guys that are a little more, I always call them like power forwards in basketball. I mean, they're guys that can play in the paint, but they're also got some athleticism to them and length and those kind of things. I mean, Lane and I are similar in that way that, really, really long arms, and our builds are a little more different than your average, O-lineman. And so I was always kind of a leaner guy, when I started playing tackle. And I think to me, it's the arm length obviously is a huge factor, but the athleticism of being able to move your feet and stay in front of some of these guys. Because at the end of the day, like, that's really what you're doing. And when you're pass protecting in the NFL, you're playing defense in the paint. I mean, you're trying to move your feet, keep people from being able to get to the ball, to the rack and to the quarterback. And so it's about being able to move your feet, use your length, and sustain some of these guys. You'll find a rare guy here or there with a good bull rush, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. I mean, I can remember when you faced James Harrison and Terrell Suggs, like, I'm trying to eat 15 meals a day to figure out how heavy I can get, because like, no matter how good of a set I take, they are going to try and annihilate me into the quarterback. Like, it ain't got anything to do with whether I can move my feet. It's going to be whether or not my feet can stay in the ground or my head's going to hit it next. So, that's the kind of guys you face, but you don't really have that as much. Like, there's not many edge rushers nowadays that you're like, oh man, this dude's just bullying people all day. It's more finesse, and I think that's one of the things that actually I brought up his name earlier, but Nick Bosa, one of the things that's kind of different about him is he kind of, to me, is a little bit of a throwback how he rushes to probably the early 2000s and even 2010 era of more true speed to power and bulls and knocking you into the quarterback type rushes. Less of all the other duck unders and ghost and spins and those kind of things that you see nowadays, and the cross chops. He's more of a true power guy.
Yeah. So would you prefer the agile and finesse over the powerful rushes?
No, I mean, for me, how I'm built, I would rather you engage. So if you engage, then I feel like I'm in a good spot, just because I'm strong enough and long enough that I can hold you off for a pretty good while. But I think but I'll say this, like, some of those stuff, all that is antics. As I tell young linemen when I'm teaching them all the time, it's their job to get to the quarterback, not your job to get back there. So some of the guys that want to work all the moves and do all, I'm great with that because you look at it, there's a lot of guys that even highlight it all the time of their production, but the reality is a lot of it's pressures or things where I'm like, I don't know if that really affected the quarterback. It looked cool. You got there like the ball was gone though, but it was a cool move. But it's like I don't know that that's really like
Yeah.
doing much. You're not affecting the quarterback. Like you're bullying a guy into the quarterback.
Right.
The quarterback can't step up. He can't get the ball out of his hand. He feels that pressure. If you're out on the outside doing all kinds of spins and wicked chops and all this kind of crazy stuff, like that's cool. But I don't even know if he knows you're there, and then the ball's gone. So it works whenever there's a play it breaks down and there's nobody open. But I don't know if it helps your team as much as it really does. Like I look at a guy like Chandler Jones. I think Chandler's an amazing rusher and has been in his career. But outside of the sack fumbles, I don't know how many times he really affects the quarterback, even though he's a great rusher, because that angle and going so wide all the time, like the quarterback's able to just step up and throw almost the majority of the time. So outside of the few where he has to hold it, you are getting sack production, but I don't know if that's down in and down out affecting the quarterback as much as you would think it is.
Wow.
One thing, Cam, I want to ask: when you say 15 meals extra, what are those looking like when you play James Harrison and Terrell Suggs exactly?
Well, look, I'm eating 15 meals a day, anyways. But no, I was just being facetious. But yeah, no, I mean, you're just eating a lot. You're trying to eat and bulk up and be as heavy as you can in those games. Just because, not that not in any exaggerated way, but you really that would be your focus. Like there's certain games where like, hey, I know this week, like conditioning is going to be really important because he gets after it, his energy level, whatever. Or some weeks it's like, hey, being really grounded and heavy, like I'm going to lift a little extra. I want my legs to be a little heavy, I want to feel really strong going into this game. Like, there's just certain ways you would prep yourself based off the guy you're playing, of how you really, not necessarily that you're going to make a change. Like, hey, I'm not actually going to be heavier or I'm not actually being stronger. But my focus for that week, like this is what I want to feel. Like when maybe it's more bench that week because I know it's a guy that's going to engage a lot. And we're going to grapple a lot. So I want to just kind of feel strong when I want to feel some weight this week so that when I play him in the game, I'm used to what that's going to feel like. Because to me, that's how, you look at a lot of weightlifting. Like a lot of guys aren't necessarily that much stronger than others, but some guys lift with really heavy weights all the time and some guys don't. And they're just used to feeling that weight. You know what I mean? And so I think to me, it's like some weeks you kind of altered what you wanted to feel or what you wanted to have be the emphasis of the week and when you played somebody.
No, I love that. I love like you adjusting, because that's your focus.
Yep.
Where are the biggest changes from transitioning to life after football? I know you're still part of football. I know you're doing media, but for you and your family, what's been the biggest adjustment?
I think just little things like, whereas, my wife did such an amazing job when I was playing of really making it just about football. So, I mean, that's all I really had to focus on outside of obviously our time with the kids and that kind of stuff. But all the other stuff was kind of, just she took care of it and never really asked you to do it. I think now it's not necessarily waiting for that, but like finding ways to get engaged in the home and make sure that you're on top of like, hey, I kind of know the routine. So let me just jump in and do stuff, not have to be asked to do it. And so I think to me, like adjusting to a little bit of finding yourself in your home again, because in football season, you're so locked in. And then the off seasons, it's like, me and my wife always used to joke, like at some point in the off season, it's going to be like a knockdown drag out of like, hey, look, like this is my house. I take care of it during football season. Now all of a sudden you want to be home, like telling me how to do things, like always something like that. Right. And so we literally like have that conversation and then like now it's like great because one, like the stress is off her a little bit of worrying about me playing all the time. And then two, like, hey, I'm happy and I'm home and there's really no stress of like that kind of performance stuff. So, kind of finding yourself in your home and things that you can do and be involved in and kind of create your own ways to be involved. Like this year, in typical years, I've just helped like with either my kids' sports teams or stuff the girls are doing. Whether it be sports or arts or singing or whatever. And then this year it's kind of been like, I'll coach it or I'll be the person I want to drive, the kids to their stuff, or I want to be the one that takes them and picks them up every day. And I want to coach certain teams. And, so that kind of stuff, like getting myself involved, like actually locked into their life has been really cool. And then I think there's always a transition from an actual football side of understanding that the game of football is just a big wheel, man, and it keeps churning with you in it or with you out of it. And so, talking to other guys that had retired recently and been out of it, just that emotional strain where you're going to feel like people who you talk to every day, like for the last ever how many years you've been with that organization or been around, like when you get out of the wheel, like you're not going to hear from them. And it's not personal. It's just they're still in the wheel and they're still rolling. And so they don't have necessarily as much time. You're going to hear from them on their breaks or when they have a chance, but you're not going to hear from them. And that's a tough thing. It's hard to like get used to like, all right, like it's not that you're not important anymore, but you're not like the priority to them. And so it kind of is an adjustment for guys. And I can see where guys who don't have a plan for when they're retired or don't have a mentality of what they're going to do next or chase next, I can see why it's a struggle because you do kind of start to feel isolated and you start to feel like, man, I was so important to all these different things and little dumb things like a guy leaning on me about his, how does he set up a bank account or how does he like get a new house or like just other things that you're used to. Just like, man, I'm used to guys leaning on me a little bit. And now it's like all of a sudden your phone's just like, man, is this thing working? So it's a different deal, but it's been cool too, because you get to kind of be there for them from afar and just kind of when they lean, I feel like being a dad to them sometimes now. It's like they kind of lean on you when something goes bad or something goes wrong, like you're going to hear from them. And it's like, hey, I want to talk to you. And you kind of become that parent figure a little bit. And so that's kind of more that, you're the person they call you on holidays now. But yeah, it's different, but I think it's one of those things I've really enjoyed it. I've loved following the game in a different way.
Wow. I wasn't ready for they only call you on the holidays.
Get ready, Cam. It's coming.
I know it's coming. Starting your own small business can be a total roller coaster. Between all the bumpy twists and turns comes the actual business side of your business, which can really throw you for a loop. Luckily, with QuickBooks, you can manage your business with confidence from the start. So, no matter how bumpy the ride gets, you can always stay on track. New business? No problem. Success starts with Intuit QuickBooks. Learn more at QuickBooks.com. All right, I know we don't want to take up too much of your time. We have a couple fun questions at the end. It's our Not Just Football segment that we like to just have some fun with you. Why did you go bald head? What made you go to the bald head?
All right, so it originally started when I was in high school. I told you that we were really good. So our team, before I ever got there, 2 or 3 years before I got there, they had started going to the state championship. So I think we went to the state championship, I don't know, I think it was either 6 or 7 times in a row. And so before I ever got there, they started tradition. Like if you won the semifinal game, everybody had to buzz their head for the state championship. That was like their commitment to winning. So they'd break out the razors. Everybody's getting their heads buzzed, whatever. And so that was their big deal. And so I did it in high school, and it was like, all right, like it ain't bad. But then I went to college, and I just kind of kept it in high school. And then I went to college. I grew it out like my freshman year. And then I used to kind of keep it tight. Like I'd have this guy come cut it and edge me up and stuff. And then all of a sudden I started realizing like, man, that thing getting back there a little bit. Like, so he took it down. He took it down, and then to bald one time. And I was like, you know what? Like, all right, I got an all right head. So I just started leaving it like that. And eventually it just kind of stuck. And then I think probably my 5th or 6th year in the NFL, I was like, I'm going to grow it out. And I tried to grow it out and wasn't nothing growing up there. And I was like, all right, well, looks like we stuck like this. This is what we're going to have to go with.
Yeah, I did that one time in college, and I was like, I'm never doing it again. I don't have the head for a bald head. So
yeah, certain people got it. You got to have the frame for it.
Yeah. Okay, so give me your top 3 bald heads of all time.
Oh, man, that's a good one. Top 3. Obviously this dude, he always gets it. Vin Diesel always wins the bald head awards. I think it's a sham. I think it should be a revote. Only because he's my buddy and we stick together in our bald headedness. I got to put Glaze on the list just because he'll be mad at me. And Glazer called me every day if I don't put him on the list. So he'll be offended if I don't put him on there. But the next bald head, let me think right now. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good one. I mean, Kevin Garnett, he's a domer too. So I'm trying to think of some other bald-headed athletes that were really good. I
You're
like
not even going to put
Garnett.
Jordan up there?
Yeah, Michael
I mean,
Jordan's one that comes to mind.
Jordan's
too.
Jordan's up there. He's just kind of I mean, him and Garnett are tough for me because they're kind of the skinny guy bald heads. That's not fair. Like, you got to be fat to where, like, this is all you got. Like, they could grow some hair and still look right. We
Right.
can't. Us big guys, like, you look weird with hair, without, don't matter. But yeah, I think
Shaq?
I put him up there. Who's
You can
that?
put Shaq. You can put Shaq up there as well.
I got to put. If I had to choose between the three, I'd go
Right.
with Shaq when he's fully bald. Yeah, early in his career he had a little bit, but old Shaq fully bald, I'd go with him just because he's my LSU brother. So we got to stick
There
together.
you go. There you go. Okay. All right. So we've seen Jeff Saturday as a head coach now. Would you be willing to be the head coach of the Rams or the Bengals?
Oh man, here's the thing. I think that I love both places, but it'd be pretty hard right now for anybody to make me an offer that gets me to leave LA because I love the weather and the golf. So I would choose the Rams just because of that. But I don't see myself taking on one of those roles anytime soon. I'll leave that for Jeff. I'll help some other guys get there if they want to, but I'll be the biggest promoter of people. And I honestly, obviously, I think it was a interesting situation how it happened. I don't think it's the right way it should go about it. But I will say this. I do think, I hope that it leads to more players getting opportunities because I do think it's something in our game today. Not necessarily that maybe 20 years ago that's accurate or 30 years ago. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But our game today, what you have to understand and know and what these players understand and know now to be good, man, any of those guys could coach in a heartbeat. And it'd just be whether it's their passion or something they want to do. So I would love to see more former players get their op. That's for sure.
What would be your first thing you did as a head coach, though?
Oh man, first thing. Well, I don't know. I think it depends. I think that really to me, I think to me the number one thing getting to be in the AFC North as long as I did, and something Sean and I have talked about all the time is just that culture of what it takes to win, the mentality it takes. To me, it's like how do you instill that in your team? That physical nature. Because you look, even in the NFL today, you have a lot of teams that splash up as good or bad year after year, but there's consistency of teams that are competitive throughout the season are built between that mental state and that physicality that they bring to every game, regardless who's on their team talent-wise. It's just a sustained model of success. And then you add some talent to that, and that's when you see those teams have big, successful years. And so I just think, to me, it's just really how do you instill the mentality and the physicality of a football team that every week they want to go out and hit people in the mouth and play physical football.
Okay. Last question. If you were the coach, are you going to be more Belichick with the sweatshirt, or are you going to go more of the collared look, the more professional look?
Oh, there's no doubt. If I'm wearing a hood, if I got a chance to put a hoodie on, unless there's some strict rule, I'm wearing a hoodie. So I'll say this. I would be, somewhere in that blend in the middle. I'll definitely have the hoodie on. I don't know if I'll be as serious as Belichick because I can't ever get that serious, but I'll definitely rock the hoodie for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely see you rocking the hoodie during your analyst reports and everything. You got some style, brother. I got to give you that.
Hey, I appreciate it. You got to be you. They say be you. I'm trying to be me, and it's fun. It's one of my most fun things every week when it's over is like the tweets or the comments I get one way or the other, like either in full support or people who just like want me to die because I'm not wearing a collared shirt. And it's like, dude, how does this even possibly matter that much to you? But it's funny, man. It's amazing how much people care about stuff like that. It's been entertaining to see.
I can't believe they would even debate that. It's a great look. But Andrew, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. You have been a pleasure to talk to. You have set the bar very high for a lot of other guests. But that's our show. Thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Hey, I appreciate you, Cam. Yeah, thank you, man. You and Hayden, I appreciate y'all having me on, and it was a lot of fun anytime.
All right. Well, that's our show. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time here on Not Just Football.